I recognize the honourable member for Oak Bay Golden Head.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to rise and speak in support of Bill 7, the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Amendment Act 2017. Like every member that's spoken before me in the House, I too obviously will be voting in support of this bill. It's a bill filled with good news, but let's explore some of the details a bit further. You know, this bill, Honourable Speaker, provides a framework, which is important, for the licensing and or registration of commercial breeders of cats and dogs. Honourable Speaker, as you will know, earlier today, I had a remarkable young woman in the legislature up there, and this young woman was deeply and profoundly concerned about the health and well-being and ability of people to have miniature goats in their backyard. So one of the questions, obviously, I'll be raising in committee stage is, does this legislation apply to the breeding of miniature goats, for example? The details of this bill, are like what I've come to see far too often in my 4 years are not actually in the bill, but are left for regulation down the road by order of the Lieutenant Governor in Council. And you know, Honourable Speaker, like every other bill that we're being asked to support here, we're essentially saying, trust us to do what's right. And it really leads one to wonder whether the government has actually done the necessary groundwork to know how this bill will play out through regulations, rather than just putting in a feel-good bill in the lead up to an election. I could actually see this, Honourable Speaker. I can imagine TV commercials as we enter the playoffs, the NHL playoffs, where we have cute little puppies, people hugging them and saying the BC government is here for you. We're here for you and the puppies. And I've given them an election suggestion. So you heard it here first, Honourable Speaker, in the BC Legislature. The BC NDP and the BC Greens, of course, could do the same thing and say, we supported this bill as we hug our puppies in the lead up to the election. You know, I'm not, truly this is an important bill, but we've had 4 years in this legislature to deal with substantive issues like this. And, it's taken till pre-election time to actually bring this forward. You know, Honourable Speaker, while many of the details are actually left to regulation, we do know, for example, that an external agency will be designated by future regulation, and that external agency will administer the system. Lots of vague language there. The agency's inspectors will be responsible for inspecting and enforcing relevant standards of care. A lot of vagaries there, vague statements there too. Inspectors will be able to apply for a warrant to enter a residence if the owner's consent is not provided. It's obviously good. Breeders found to be engaging in irresponsible practice may be subject to administrative actions, including having their license or registration suspended or cancelled. Operators will be able to request a review or reconsideration of the administrative actions taken against them. And this bill has the support of the SPCA. We know that as well after they consulted and the government consulted with a variety of stakeholders. You know, one of the things that I would have liked to have seen in a bill like this, much as I would like to have seen in the Wildlife Act, for example, where government actually has specific language that states that you are not going to be granted a license if you have committed an offence against a similar type of piece of legislation in another province. Now, why I say that, Honourable Speaker, is that in the case of wildlife, we have stories coming forth of guide outfitters who in other provinces have actually been fined for offences through not appropriately abiding by the rules of the province. Yet in BC, the wild west of BC, it doesn't matter who you are, we'll give you a guide outfitting license. And that, Honourable Speaker, is irresponsible, which is why I would have liked to see something a little stronger here in terms of who actually gets licenses. You know, Honourable Speaker, the essence of this bill falls into two sections, Section 4 and Section 5, and these actually are designed in the first case to impose prohibitions and duties on operators who must be licensed or registered to engage in a regulated activity. For example, it requires a licensed or regulated operator to display and make it available to an inspector their license or license of certificate of registration, and display the license or certificate and provide information to the public. And also, an operator may not charge a fee for providing information to the public or a person who may acquire an animal from an operator. Now, the problem here, again, has been alluded to by two of my colleagues, the member from Cowichan Valley and the member from Nanaimo North Cowichan. The member for Cowichan Valley, who's well known within this legislature for looking at legislation with under a microscope, with peeling through the details with a fine-tooth comb, searching for jiggery-pokery in any form or in any fashion. And Honourable Speaker, you know, it's interesting what he was able to find here, and this was not his. I mean, he gives credit to the person who brought it to him, but he received some important information, and that is something that I would like to explore. I'm sure the member from Cowichan Valley will as well at committee stage, is to the effect that we're introducing red tape, regulation, for existing or the people already following the law, where those who don't follow the laws are likely not going to be knocking on doors and saying, give us a permit, so that we're going to actually, we'll display that permit so that everyone can tell that we're not actually following the law. So, you know, the underground aspect of those kind of puppy factories that we're introducing legislation for is not clear to me that this is actually being dealt with, and the extent to which there's some proactive measure taken by the government to seek out such people, or do they have to simply wait till somebody makes a complaint and then follow the legislation subsequent to receiving such a complaint? You know, Honourable Speaker, as I mentioned, Section 5, the other meaty part of this bill, that sets out the procedures for applying for a license or registration, and provides inspection power for enforcing a licensing or registration scheme. And it also provides a designated agency to establish, administer, and enforce a licensing or registration scheme, and for training and oversight of employees as licensing officers, reviewing officers, and licensing inspectors. So again, you know, when you read this bill, there's nothing really of any substance to criticize. There's a few concerns that my friend and colleague from Cowichan Valley have noted, but this is really a bill about protecting animals. And I've heard each and every person here speak to this. And what I noted in their speeches, and every person talked about the love of their dog that they had when they were a child. But Honourable Speaker, let me tell you, I didn't have a dog as a child. And I didn't have a dog as a child because I was allergic to dogs. And my mother was allergic to dogs. And you know, so I can't speak with passion to the love of my dog. However, when I left home, my parents, I did watch Old Yeller, and it's sad. The member from Peace River South pointed out that Old Yeller evokes passion in anyone who watched it. It was a very disturbing movie to me when I was a child, to see Old Yeller get hydrophobia and start to turn against the young boy who once was his soulmate, his partner. That was troubling, and perhaps Old Yeller had actually got that from a puppy farm that we're so lucky today will be regulated by this particular government. So this government is actually stepping in to do what Old Yeller's little boy couldn't do, which is protect the future of their puppy from the puppy farm and the diseases they get. You know, Honourable Speaker, my parents did have a lovely dog, and we have several of them. They were non-allergic dogs, and so they were able to have them when I was older, and they were delightful pets, and they were passed down from the family to family because others got old and they couldn't take care of the dogs. And I remember my parents' dog's first name. It was Lisko. Lisko is a Ukrainian name, I believe it means fox. I could be wrong, but I believe it meant fox. It was a lovely name for a very vibrant dog that kept my parents company. We had a subsequent dog, Honourable Speaker. It was Lisa. It was another dog very similar, and it was too loved by my parents. But I couldn't enjoy, even though it was hypoallergenic, I couldn't enjoy the pleasures of dogs. So while I understand, having watched Old Yeller, the importance of this bill, I could never actually feel it personally. Like the member from North Vancouver Seymour, the member from Cowichan Valley, all these heartfelt stories, the member from Nanaimo North Cowichan with his husky. I missed out in childhood. Maybe I should be seeking therapy over that after listening to these speeches here today. Some of the members opposite feel the same way. Anyway, the reason why I bring that up, of course, this is a very important bill, Honourable Speaker. I'll be speaking in support of it. I will be following up in committee stage. It is important that we treat our pets, but there are so many other issues facing the people of British Columbia. Why is this government not bringing in legislation to deal with affordability issues? Why is this government not dealing with a very problematic aspect of our society, which is the liability of pet owners for the behavior of their pets? Honourable Speaker, on the order papers, you'll see some bills there. I spoke last session about the Animal Liability Act and changes. This time I'll speak about the Community Charter, so that we can actually ensure that not only the breeders of pets, but also the owners of pets are held accountable for their treatment and ownership of the pets that they have under their care. And this is important, Honourable Speaker. The government's missing that. It's not dealing with this. It's going with the election ad during hockey games, holding puppies, saying, "We're here for you, British Columbians. We're here to support your puppies." I mean, really, there's so many other issues we should be dealing. We should be talking about health care. We should be talking about education. There are so many bills. What about poverty? What about the rates of social welfare rates? Why aren't we seeing legislation here? Why are we focusing on a number of bills that are brought forward? The last session of this government being in office, we're dealing with Budget Measures Act, a lovely bill to protect puppies. We all agree it's a lovely bill. You know, there's a couple of other bills that we're getting, but there's nothing. This is a government, Honourable Speaker, that is so lost, so out of touch with the issues facing British Columbians, that they're pulling bills off the shelf that they've had to fill the time, rather than actually standing up and dealing with the prevailing issues in British Columbia. The fact, Honourable Speaker, the fact that this time 4 years ago, we had been promised 100,000 jobs, $100 billion prosperity fund, $1 trillion increase in GDP, elimination of the PST, thriving schools and hospitals, 3 LNG plants, and all of us wealthy in their lead up to the last election. Where is it? It's not here. Why aren't we talking about that, Honourable Speaker? Are we going to see them taking out ads? Them taking out ads in the hockey games, hugging puppies and saying, you know, we're here for you, British Columbians. We're here for your puppies. Or are they going to stand up and say, we're sorry we misled you for the last 4 years by promising you nonsense, despite the fact that the lone BC Green MLA in this legislature said it wasn't going to happen in 2012, said it wasn't going to happen in 2013, said it wasn't going to happen in 2014, said it wasn't going to happen in 2015. Around that time, the Minister of Hot Air and Gas pointed out that I was going to eat my words, and he was looking forward to that time because he knew more than I did, because he meets with these people. And 2 years later, here we are, Honourable Speaker. Where is it? It's misleading. So what are we doing, Honourable Speaker? We're debating here the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Amendment Act. Like, well done, BC government, well done dealing with those issues that are affecting everyday life for British Columbians here. Let's talk about puppies. Like, give me a break. Obviously, I support this bill, but there are so many other bills that we should be talking about, and that is what we should be spending time here, and that is why I'm going to sit down now, because I hope we get to those other issues to talk about them as we come forward.